Welcome back to V2K Photography. This is the Sigma 150 to 600 f5 to 6.3 DGDN sports lens. Sigma has three variants. One is the contemporary, the other one is the art, and this one has the S on it. It doesn't stand for hope. It is sports lens. So sports lens doesn't mean that it has to be particularly used for sports photography. I was using this only for bird photography, and I was not having any access to any of the sports around here, and also I am trying to avoid as much human beings as possible. You know, COVID situation, you know how it is. So yeah, for bird photography, I think this lens helped me a lot. I am not a bird photographer. I'm not a wildlife photographer. I was completely reliant on the technology of the lens and the camera body. This lens did not let me down. So the focus hit the bird every single time. It was so good. Even at 600 millimeters, the focus tracking was excellent. You know, at 600 millimeters, it is so hard to keep the birds inside the frame, and I was using the 6400, so 600 millimeters was more like a 900 millimeter equivalent of a full frame. So it was really hard to track birds in flight especially, and this lens was truly helpful in that matter. I mean, those flying things are so quick and so agile. One minute it's here, the other minute it's like fallen from the sky. I can't even track where they are. I can't even see them where they are. So it was so hard, but this lens helped me get some decent pictures to my standard. Let's talk about sharpness of this lens. I wouldn't call this lens extremely sharp. There is some sort of softness when it comes to wide open apertures in this lens. No matter where the zoom range is, even at 150 millimeters and 600 millimeters, there is softness. I mean, the resolving power of the lens was not there. So it was not like tack sharp or something. It was pretty decent, but it was okay. The sharpness is adequate when the subject is filled in the frame. You know what I mean? So if the subject is like big in the frame, it has really good sharpness. The resolving power is really good. But for birds in flight, especially when they're really far away and you're zoomed in completely to 600 millimeters, the loss of sharpness is evident. So keep that in mind. I took some pictures of my daughter with this lens at both 150 and 600 millimeters. That sharpness is good enough for me. I wouldn't need any more sharpness for portraits, honestly speaking. So yeah, be mindful of that. This lens is not tack sharp. It is there, but it's not too sharp. And I wouldn't choose a lens solely based on sharpness. Sharpness is just like a teeny bit of a larger equation. There is more to this lens than just sharpness. For instance, this lens is almost parfocal. I say almost because I don't exactly know how scientifically to prove it that it's 100% parfocal, but you see it for yourself. I was focusing on a bird at 150 millimeters, and when I zoomed in to 600 millimeters, the focus did not lose at any of the zoom ranges. So the focus just stayed on the bird all through the zoom range. So, I mean, that is parfocal, right? And I was on manual focus, of course. So, yeah, I think this lens is excellent for video work as well, because this parfocal capability is a characteristic of a high-end cine lens. So speaking of cine lenses, how good is the manual focus? The manual focus is smooth, it's responsive, the throw is really long, and it's like really buttery smooth, and the breathing is minimal. So minimal. So I just love the optical engineering of this lens, except for that critical sharpness. That's it. Moving on. Yeah, we have 600 millimeters, so it is natural for anyone to be tempted to take some portraits with this lens, right? We could shoot portraits with this lens, but make sure the subject is like really far away from you. If not, they'll be like too big in the frame, filling up the frame. It's like too gigantic in the frame to look at. But I'm not a big fan of that. So if you are far away, we can really get some beautiful portraits with this lens. And this is not a prime lens, right? It's not like 2.8 or f4. It is a 6.3 lens at 600 millimeters. You can't expect the background to be completely a blob of colors. You can still make out with the texture of the background, but there is really good subject separation. I think we need to draw a line, like we need to have a balance between what to expect and what not to. I think the background separation is really good with this lens, but it's not like completely gone. For instance, this image was shot at 150 millimeters. So this is how much background blur you can get or expect. And this image was shot at 600 millimeters at the same distance, from the same distance. So this is how much background blur we can get. And of course, the background blur depends on the distance between the lens and the subject and the background of the subject and all those stuff. But just to give you an idea, this is how much separation you can expect from the lens. The bokeh is smooth, it's circular. I don't see any peculiar characteristics. It is really good, works really well. It's not distracting, circular bokeh, well and good. That's it. The lens has chromatic aberration. I could see purple and pink fringes really strong at high contrast situations, especially if you have a clear sky and you have a black color bird flying around, you can see a blue outline of the bird. So keep that in mind as well. It can be removed in post, but just be mindful of that. The lens's aperture shifts from 5 to 6.3. When you zoom from 150 to 180, you can, or let me put it this way, until 180 millimeter focal length, we can shoot at f5. From 180 to 400, we can shoot at f5.6. Beyond 400, it is a 6.3 lens, basically. I'm not sure of the exact weight of the lens, but I think this is the densest part of the lens, okay? This part is the densest. And I was using a 6400 here, and you know how light 6400 is like. So it's like a little bit heavier than the lens cap, that's it. So using a 6400 wasn't a really good choice. The camera body was too light, the lens was too front heavy, and I did not have a good balance. So make sure you have a big body with a battery grip and all this stuff, so to have a good balance, you know, to distribute the weight evenly. The zoom throw is a 90-degree throw, okay? So fast zooming is not that easy. You can do that, but in that process, you could easily miss the subject in the frame. And also, in the smooth mode, the lens suffers from zoom creep. See? The lens suffers from zoom creep. But if you move it to the T mode, which is the tight mode, the lens stays proper. Moving it to T mode, so whichever focal length I leave it, just stays there. It doesn't fall down on its own weight. And of course, it's a digital lens from Sigma. It is absolutely silent for both photos and video. This enables you to be completely discreet when you do wildlife photography, right? And if you're using electronic shutter and all that, you can be absolutely dead silent and take amazing pictures. The lens will not drive those animals or birds away. I can guarantee you that. It's absolutely silent. So this is a zoom lens and it doesn't zoom internally. So when you rock the zoom, it just extends to this much and retracts to this size. And we have a huge zoom ring and also a manual focus ring. We'll talk about the manual focus response later in the video, but this is what it is. And it comes with a front pouch We can remove the lens hood like this. Just turn the knob off. Loosen this. And we can remove this. And we have a 95mm filter thread. So ND filters are going to be expensive, and we don't have any slot for drop-in ND filters as well. So if you need to go for filters, you need to buy much more expensive ND filters. It is a 6.3 lens at maximum zoom, so I don't think we would need any ND filters. And we have this knob to adjust the tripod collar, and the tripod collar comes with one thread, and also this portion itself is a dovetail. It's a small tail though, but it's a dovetail. All right, let me just tighten this up. And when you rotate this, you can feel the clicks. And we have dedicated switches here, one for the autofocus and manual focus. So we have another switch here for the focus range. One is for the full range. The other one is 10 meters to infinity. And the next one is 10 meters to the closest focusing distance, which is 0.58 meters at 150 millimeters and 2.8 meters at 600 millimeters. So that's the closest focusing distance you get. And we have image stabilization, optical stabilization in this case. So we have two levels of optical stabilization. In my opinion, the OS1 gives extraordinary results. 2 is more like the sports mode. I'm not sure when and how to use it, but this OS1 is brilliant. And we have another custom button here, so C1 and C2. We can customize these buttons to anything that you want. Right now, or by default, it comes with the focus, so autofocus button. So it reacts as an autofocus button. We have another switch here, which is for the zoom lock. L stands for lock. T, so we have T and S. T probably stands for tight because it's a little bit tighter. The zoom ring is tighter. And S, maybe smooth. It's much smoother now. See, I always shot with S. I did not have a reason to shoot with T mode, but it is an option if you want, maybe for video work. We have, of course, a weather sealing gasket. A rubber gasket is here, so it can be used in different weather conditions. And you can even take some drizzles and droplets. That should be fine. So yeah, we have weather sealing in this lens. The lens is made in Japan, if that is something that interests you. So who do I suggest this lens for? Beginners like me in wildlife and bird photography, of course, yes. Sports, yes. Action photography, yes. The autofocus is really fast, reliable, and yeah, I mean, this lens is a wonderful lens for beginners, enthusiasts, and before you get your hands on fast prime lenses like the 400 2.8 or 600 f4, this could be a wonderful practice lens. So in order to practice wildlife photography, this could be a wonderful choice. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, bye-bye.